Top 5 eyes in Dynasty right now. That's right. Welcome back to the Birdhouse Dynasty Show. And we're ready to give you our top 5 buys in Dynasty based off of our offensive coordinator average touchdown per game chart that we've now uploaded onto the Patreon. We will show you that shortly. It's exclusively on the Patreon for the Birdhouse Dynasty Show. You can find that at patreon.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show. You can also buy us a coffee for any questions with the Buy Me a Coffee app. It's buymeacoffee.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show. Otherwise, we shall get to our top 5 buys right now. And we're going to start you off with the man on the thumbnail. That's right, Mr. Kenneth Walker of the Seattle Seahawks. They are a team going into the 2025 season with a new offensive coordinator. That is Clint Kubiak from the New Orleans Saints. He started off hot last year with the Saints, and it sort of fizzled out with the injuries to Shaheed and Chris Olave and Derek Carr. So what was a very promising 2-game start for the Saints. Hopefully you sold all your Saints, like my sidekick, big Saints fan, Matt English. He told you all to sell them after week 2. He told you to sell them after week 1. Hell, I'm still selling Saints. But now you have Clint Kubiak with a ton of talent out west in Seattle, and Kenneth Walker is the bell cow running back. I don't care what you say about Zach Charbonnet. Yes, he was awesome in those 6 games Kenneth Walker missed, but in the 11 games that he did play last year, he was a monster. Only 2 of those games did he finish in single digits. He racked up 53 targets in those 11 matchups. That's about 5 a game. So you can only imagine what Clint Kubiak will be doing with him, considering the amount of targets that Alvin Kamara got last year. Kubiak is coming from the Shanahan system. He was out in San Francisco prior to going to the Saints last year. Now, Kenneth Walker is somebody who I've always been up and down on with his just right out of college. I wasn't sold on his receiving ability. Then obviously after his first year, it made it quite apparent that it was just the fact that Michigan State wasn't throwing him the ball. This happens to a lot of running backs. Hell, LT, he only had 39 catches in his 4-year career in college, and then racked up 75 catches in his first year. So what it ultimately comes down to really is the offensive system and a quarterback that likes to dump the ball off. All right. If you got a scrambling quarterback that likes to, not check down, just take off and run after 1 or 2 reads, well, yeah, the running back's not going to get many passes other than the ones that are screens or designed directly to them. So don't be worried about Kenneth Walker and getting targets, because he will get a plenty this year. And for the weeks that he is healthy, he is an absolute must-start stud. Go out and get him. He's valued around $5,000 on Keep Trade Cut right now, so you could down tier from Breece Hall to him. You could down tier. I don't know if I down tier from Achane. I love Achane, but it's not a bad move if you need extra pieces. Think about it with Achane. Everybody is worried about his stability because of his size. Kenneth Walker's 5'9", 211. I don't think there's any worries about his size, right? So injuries are a fluky thing. They change year to year. 1 year, CMC's healthy the whole year. The next year, he is out basically the whole year because of tendonitis. If you are too worried about injuries, you might as well not play this game. It's plain and simple. The fantasy football, if you're playing it, you have to expect injuries to happen. You have to be prepared for what you're going to do when the injuries happen. That doesn't mean you need 10 deep at running back, right? You can have, you don't need 10 deep studs at running back. I'm saying you can have a lot of bodies there for the attrition. At wide receiver, what are you going to do? Well, you can go slim at wide receiver because they're less likely to get hurt, but that's where you need extra draft picks just in case some do get hurt so you can make trades during the year. All right. Same thing goes at quarterback. Look at all the backup quarterbacks that have gotten playing time and have won people leagues. Hell, I won a league 2 years ago with Easton Stick. That's right. Chargers, Easton Stick at the helm in my super flex league. So don't tell me that one injury is going to crush your season, because it doesn't. If Kenneth Walker goes down, maybe you have Zach Charbonnet then. I mean, just there are plenty of running backs who can step up and make it happen. But Kenneth Walker is going to be the focal point of Clint Kubiak's attack out in the Rainy City. So go out there, kick the tires with your Kenneth Walker owner in your league and see what you can go ahead and acquire him for. Now, let me bring up one of the other reasons why, and that is my newly released average touchdown per game chart, along with the offensive coordinator correlation. It's on my Patreon right now. So I used this chart last year. I didn't publish it, but I had it and it worked wonders. So I'm now sharing it with you. It's free on my Patreon for the time being. Once I'm probably going to have it up for about a week. Okay. And then it will go to the paid subscribers that pay $3 a month for my Patreon. You also get my rookie rankings with that Patreon subscription. If you just want to be in the forum, you can pay $1 a month for that. But yes, let me bring it up for you right exclusively on the Birdhouse Dynasty Show Patreon. All right, there it is. So as you can see, I don't know where there's the cursor. Okay, so we have the team, 2023 touchdowns per game, their offensive coordinator situation that off season, then the 2024 season and the percentage change in average touchdowns per game that they had. And then now their new offensive coordinator situation heading into the 2025 season. So what I found, to sum this up quickly for you, is the teams who got rid of their offensive coordinators and brought in new offensive coordinators more often than not outproduced their touchdowns per game from the previous year. Why do I use touchdowns per game, you ask? Okay, well, we're playing fantasy football here, right? And we want points. Do I want to sit here and add up all the yards and break down yardage per game and the quarterback, running back, blah, blah? No, I want to know what offenses are going to produce well in the next season. That's what we're looking for. So out of the 12 teams that replaced coordinators this offseason so far, or last year, 12 teams replaced their coordinators. 8 of them scored more touchdowns than the previous season, above the average amount of increase in touchdowns. So there was a 6% variance from 2023 to 2024. That means that the league scored 6% more touchdowns across the board. All right. So you really had to be above the 6% threshold in increase to actually have it be meaningful. Right. So some of the teams, like they went from 2.8 to 2.9. Well, that was, they did what the league averaged. The league average is about 2.2, somewhere in there. Right. So the league went from 2.2 per game to 2.3. Right. So now, as you can see, the Detroit Lions leading the way with 4.1 touchdowns per game. And that's sort of an outlier. Nobody had that high of a total in the 2023 season. If I scroll down, I think it was, what were the Niners at? Let's see, the Lions were at 3.5. Miami and Dallas were at 3-4, and the Niners were at 3-5. So 3-5 was the highest of the 2023 season. So you can see 4.1, even the 3.8 seasons from Baltimore and Buffalo were sort of outliers. Okay. You can see Buffalo fired, who was it? Ken Dorsey mid-season 2023, brought in Joe Brady, and then saw an increase in 2024, 19%. Baltimore kept Todd Monken, and they saw an increase. Detroit, as I showed you, now they've lost Ben Johnson, and so that is a tricky situation because they had somebody leave because of good performance, and now they'll have a new coordinator, which is similar to what happened to Tampa last year when Dave Canales left and went to Carolina. And I was worried. Tampa was one of the reasons that I came up with this, because I was worried about the Tampa players with Dave Canales' successful offense in 2023. You can see success meant just 2.3 touchdowns for the Bucs. So you can tell how weak we were the prior year if I was happy about a 2.3 touchdown season. Well, Liam Cohen led us to a 3.4 touchdown season per game, a 48% increase. And that earned him the head coaching position in Jacksonville. So Jacksonville now is one of the teams that you could look for an increase going into next season. Jacksonville way, way, way down here, right? At 2.4 in 2023, they dropped down to 2.0, a 17% decrease in touchdowns per game. They fired him and now have a new coordinator underneath Liam Cohen, but Liam Cohen will be doing the play calling. And that leads us into our second bye. And yes, you guessed it. It is Mr. Trevor Lawrence. Yes. So now I know I'm not the only one out there projecting Trevor Lawrence to do better, but I mean, a QB 27 finish for somebody who has top 10 potential is just, it's too easy to pass up as a buy candidate. All right. He finished top 10 2 years ago. And so this isn't surprising. He was the number 1 overall pick, blah, blah, blah. The talent is obviously there, but not only for Lawrence, his talent is there, but think of all the underproducers that they had. Christian Kirk was banged up. Evan Ingram banged up. Travis Etienne banged up. Sorry. I'm thinking of the mock draft where Trevor went to Jacksonville and you had the Etienne brothers. Could happen. Never know. Then Tank Bigsby. Now, the issue I have with projecting somebody like Travis Etienne to be the buy is that I'm not sure what to think of the Jacksonville backfield. Last year, Liam Cohen in Tampa, I wasn't huge on Bucky Irving, right? We drafted him in the fourth round. He seemed small to me, but I didn't look at the broken tackle rate. The guy was a monster in college. And so broken tackles is a huge indicator of success in the NFL for college players. So make sure when you're looking at your draft analytics for your rookie running backs, check out the broken tackle rate. But sidestep the Jacksonville backfield, went right to the quarterback, because if, let's say, Jacksonville just improves 20%, 20% of 2.4 would be an extra, they'd go up to 2.7 or 2.8 per game. That's an extra over the course of the season, 0.4 times 17. I mean, that's 7 or 8 extra touchdowns for the Jaguars. All right. Who do you think is going to score the majority of those? All right. I'm going to bet that half of those at least are going to be Lawrence, if not more. Right. So yes, Brian Thomas is legit. No problem. I do not see a sophomore slump from him. He's going to be playing the Mike Evans role in that offense. I love Christian Kirk as a possibility. The only touchy thing with him is he actually could be a free. I mean, he could actually go somewhere else because he could be a cap casualty for the Jaguars. So not sure 100% on Christian Kirk. The fact that you can probably get him for like a third rounder, though, makes him a decent buy. Trevor Lawrence is the commander of this offense, and he is the franchise. So buy into Trevor Lawrence now. You can trade. You could tier down from, say, a Justin Herbert to Trevor Lawrence and pick up, theoretically, a first rounder. According to Keep Trade Cut right now, I mean, that is bonkers. There's a lot of, like, I'd tier down from Jordan Love, CJ Stroud. There's just a bunch of guys. Trevor Lawrence is ranked like 15th right now on Keep Trade Cut. I'm not sure exactly. I'm not going to even bother bringing it up, but I know his values are right around 5,000, 5,200, something like that. But the bottom line is I would take him over every single quarterback in the rookie class this year. What does that mean? Well, that means that the rookie quarterbacks right now are evaluated to go around somewhere around the 104 to 109 range. And that means I'm talking about Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders specifically. Jackson Dart could definitely move himself up into that range. But as of now, I would say that I'd look at the quarterbacks being picked 104 to 109, somewhere in there. Okay. So if you have a rookie pick like the 105, 106, well, that's something you can offer for Trevor Lawrence for sure if you need a quarterback, right? If you're struggling with your QB2, I mean, I know I got one team where I have Herbert. I'm totally rebuilding. I would love to have somebody like Trevor Lawrence as my second quarterback right now. That is where it's at. You're going to have a healthier team around him potentially this year. I mean, they had a lot of games lost to injury at the receiving positions last year. So that should have a healthy progression. I hate saying a healthy regression because that just makes no sense to me. So I'm trying to push on the progression term here. So like if they had a down season touchdown wise, they're going to progress this year into a better total, not a positive regression. That makes no sense. That's talking double negative. I don't like it. Anyway, just a pet peeve. So do not use positive regression when you're around me. All right. If you want to type it in the chat, go ahead and test me. Anyway, we're going to let's look at the, we'll go back to the chart after I bring up our next candidate for buys right now, and that is Mr. Caleb Williams in Chicago. Yes, the Windy City finally gets a potential positive depression. That is very, very scary. And it would be positively depressing if Caleb Williams doesn't perform now with Ben Johnson at the helm in Chicago. He slides over from the Motor City to the Windy City and brings his bag of tricks over to the Bears. Finally, it seems like the Bears have an actual offensive mind. No, I'm not talking Matt Nagy here, who just bores you to death with the chalkboard. Ben Johnson is very innovative. He found creative ways to get into the end zone with the Lions. I think he spearheaded them going for fourth down all the time, and that's what led them to have this amazing touchdown total. Let me bring up the chart again for you. Here is the average touchdown per game chart that I was talking about, and it will slide up to the top here to show you the Lions again. So the Lions, as great as they were in 2023, getting to the NFC Championship, they increased to 4.1 touchdowns this last season. Now, what do we have here that matches up well? Okay, can Caleb Williams run a Jared Goff system? Well, he's going to have to become a little more disciplined and learn to stay in the pocket a little better. That's for sure. Also, they need a better offensive line. Hopefully the Bears at pick number 9 invest in the offensive line. Now, if they don't take one in the first round and they take some talent, like a lot of people say Genty might go there, I don't know. That would be hopefully awesome. But if nobody can block for him, I don't know. So all I'm saying is Bears, please, within your first 3 picks, draft 2 linemen for the guy. Okay, give him a chance because we've got DJ Moore and Rome Odunze both waiting in the wings to help this Bears offense, who was, yes, down here right around the median at 2.2 touchdowns in 2023. You can see here. Then they fired the absolutely terrible, who was their coordinator in 2023? It was, I'm drawing Luke Getsy. Yes, some of these coordinators, it's amazing. I have a whole list here with the coordinators, how they are able to get fired and then land a job the next season. I mean, between Luke Getsy, he took his terrible skills then to Las Vegas and got fired. You had Alex Van Pelt going from the Browns in 2023 and doing a shitty job, and then took his crap to New England, and it was even worse. Then you had Ken Dorsey, who got fired by Buffalo. Somehow the Browns then decided to bring him in. I mean, I don't know what the Browns are thinking. Yes, Waldron was the coordinator last year who got, well, not fired, but relieved of. No, he got fired. That's right. He wasn't relieved. That was Nathaniel Hackett that got relieved of the play calling duties, basically telling him you're going to get fired. But in Chicago, Shane Waldron did get fired. They promoted Thomas Brown, who had been fired as the offensive coordinator the previous year in Carolina. So what were they giving Caleb Williams to work with here? I mean, it's just asinine. Shane Waldron was just putrid in Seattle. They ran him out of town there, and the Bears decided to bring his ass in. Like, it didn't seem like a good fit from the beginning, and it was worse on the field. And it was very unfortunate because the Bears, like, how do I explain it? I thought the GMs did a decent job of bringing some talent in for the guy, drafting Rome Odunze, bringing Keenan Allen in, a nice solid veteran. And, Caleb was able to hook up with Keenan Allen a lot when he was healthy. I don't expect Keenan Allen to be back, but that will promote a healthy development for Rome Odunze to get more targets, a la JSN, what worked out for him after Shane Waldron left. So we will see. The point is a lot of times when these teams, as you can see there, the Bears fired and new, a lot of times it's not what happened. The majority of the time, it wasn't what happened in Chicago. They went from 2.2 to 2.1. The majority of the fired and new teams, you see at least a 20% increase the next year. All right. The Jets, their increase was insane, but that simply was because of Aaron Rodgers actually being healthy. Now, you can look at some of the regression from teams, and Miami and San Francisco stand out, but there, of course, you had Tua being hurt and CMC being hurt, so that was obvious. Cincinnati jumped up from 2.4 to 3.4 touchdowns per game, but that was with a healthy Joe Burrow. So sometimes it's pretty easy to see the correlation. What do you got here, Chef? Oh, I knew it was going to be a bad year for us when we were the only team to draft a punter. Yeah, I guarantee you Ben Johnson isn't drafting a punter. That's you guys. I mean, obviously you're a Bears fan. You have to be just happy. I don't know what level of happiness you have though, but it's got to be at least a 10 to get somebody like Ben Johnson there. I don't know. I'm excited for the Bears. I mean, that's just never happened before, right? So it's the most excited BJ in your life. Wow. Well, I'll leave that for the imagination for everyone out there, but thanks for that. But yeah, it's definitely not my most exciting in my life, but I'll take your word for it, Chef. All right, so back to Caleb Johnson. Now, I think that Caleb himself has to be excited, and so I think that could motivate him this offseason, motivate him to work more with Rome, with DJ Moore. DJ Moore could easily bounce back to being a top 10 wide receiver. The guy's a stud. He can do it all. And then you've got, and I think he'll probably get the Amon-Ra role, while Rome Odunze will work more on the outside. But Ben Johnson's creative enough that he'll work with the talent that he has, because DJ Moore is not Amon-Ra St. Brown and Rome Odunze is not Jameson Williams, but that doesn't mean that he can't make it work. Okay, you don't have to have like one-for-one replacements. Cole Kmet, on the other hand, he could definitely see an uptick. All right, may save his career for everything. But who knows? The Bears, again, with their backfield, I mean, yes, they could go ahead and roll with DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson again. But I also wouldn't be shocked if they draft a running back. I mean, think about it. There's like 30 to 35 draftable running backs in this amazing class that we have this year. So pretty much every team is going to draft a running back. And that's a whole nother show in and of itself with what to do with the running back situations right now, because the thing is you don't necessarily just want to lay back in the weeds, because then you're going to miss out on some awesome opportunities, because some teams aren't going to draft the running back until the 5th, 6th, 7th rounds. And that means the incumbents will probably still be solid. But then you have other teams where you're going to end up with that already have 2 running backs, like the Bears. I mean, Roschon Johnson hasn't been amazing at all, but he's still a solid NFL player. Okay. And, it's hard to say. Ben Johnson could like Roschon Johnson and he could get tons of work. So it's going to be very interesting. I know they're going to definitely probably try and work out some kind of Monty Jahmyr Gibbs type thing. I don't see DeAndre Swift all of a sudden getting 25 touches a week. So it's either going to be Swift and Roschon, or it's going to be Swift and the new guy, or the new guy is going to be the top dog, and then it'll be either Swift or Rojo getting pushed aside. But regardless, I think the Bears will take a running back, make their offense a little more scary. I mean, if they want to compete in that NFC North, the NFC North's offenses are just phenomenal, and there's great play callers on every squad now. It's going to be another fun year in the NFC North, that's for sure. So we'll move on to our next buy, and that would be one Mr. Nico Collins of the Houston Texans. Let's bring Nico up here front and center. Here we go. So Nico, for any of you who owned Nico last year, you know what an up, down, and up season it was for Nico. The guy started off just on fire and then missed 6 games. Well, missed 5 3/4, but in that one quarter, he put up what most players could only do in one single game. Against the Bills, he caught that bomb and then hurt himself. So anyway, he's healthy, he's back, and we've got a new offensive coordinator in Houston. Houston went from 2.5 touchdowns to just 2.2 touchdowns a game last year, and that was extremely disappointing. Enough disappointment to get what's his name? Bobby Slowick. Yes, Bobby Slowick canned, and so now they brought in Nick Caley, and what I see from him is getting some hyper targets to Nico Collins to start things off. We don't know if Diggs will be back. We know that Tank Dell will be out for most of the year. So even if they draft Emeka Egbuka, which would be an amazing selection for them, who has played with CJ Stroud in college, I don't think that Egbuka is going to get, even if he got 100 targets in his rookie season, Nico Collins is looking at a 150-plus target season this year. So, again, can't worry about injuries. So in the weeks that he plays, this dude's going to be getting 7 to 10 targets a game. And again, anybody that's watched Nico Collins over the last couple of years, you've just seen him blossom into a true alpha. The dude, I would trade I would trade the 101 for Nico Collins if I really needed a wide receiver on my squad versus a running back. All right. That's how much I'm confident in Nico Collins. His value right there on keep, trade, cut, pretty even with the 101 pick. He's going right around, where Brian Thomas is. They're both ahead of Marv. Maybe a little behind Malik Neighbors. His Neighbors is a little flashier, but I trust me. If Nico Collins was playing in New York, he probably would be valued higher. It's just part of the ADV. And so I think that Nico Collins is possibly slightly undervalued, if I could say that. But I like the prospects for Nico going forward. He was a high recruit to Michigan. He fell to the third round because his stats weren't that great at Michigan because they were so run heavy. And then never had a decent quarterback play until Stroud came in. And when Stroud came in as a rookie, he loved Nico right away. And so I'm saying go out there and get Nico. Here's the Texans on the chart. Let me bring it up just so you guys can see. The Texans are, let me see here, right in the middle there. So they averaged 2.5 in 2023, kept Slowick there, and then dropped down to 2.2 this last season. And I think it'll be a good move for the Texans. The Texans are a nice, young, exciting team. They have the most coaching experience in the division right now, which is kind of surprising because DeMeco Ryans is so young, yet he has the most experience in that division. And so I think that the Texans, again, got to come into the clubhouse as the odds-on favorite to win that division again. I'm not saying they're going to go 15-2 and run the table over everybody, but they are the most solid team in that division, regardless of who they end up bringing in at wide receiver. Joe Mixon's going to be back. He's solidifies that run game. I love Nico Collins prospects for the 2025 season. All right, next up, let's get to our last buy. And this one comes with an asterisk because it's a little shaky, yet we'll go down. All right, so let me slide down the chart. We got to slide way down the chart on this one. And this one kind of is an easy cherry pick, but New England, the Patriots were at 1.6 touchdowns in 2023. Rose 12% to 1.8 touchdowns after firing. Who did they have? Who did I say they had? Yeah, Bill O'Brien in 2023. You Texans fans out there, you know all about old Bill O'Brien. So they got rid of him, brought in, as I mentioned earlier, Alex Van Pelt. Yikes. And now Drake May gets old Josh McDaniel to come into New England following Mike Vrabel. I don't want to say the sky is the limit because it still is it's still going to be a Mike Vrabel led team. And so it doesn't give me the feel of a team that could put up 3.5 touchdowns a week. But I don't think Bill Belichick ever scared anybody offensively, right? But Josh McDaniel did with Tom Brady. Now, can Drake May become Tom Brady? That's a lofty goal. But can Drake May put up some stats that will get you fantasy points similar to what Tom Brady put up? That's another story. So Drake May, as you've seen over his rookie season, if you didn't watch him at North Carolina, you may not have known how well the guy can run the ball. And he put up some very solid rushing stats, which will help his floor. Then the guy's got a cannon. And I mean, he is as close to what Josh Allen actually does and the way he runs. Now, he's only 6'4", 225. Josh Allen's 6'5", 250, something like that. So I'm not saying that May is going to bulldoze people and get a dozen touchdowns rushing, but the Pats have a lot of cap space. They could make a big run at T. Higgins. They could go out and get, I don't know, they could sign somebody like Keenan Allen on the cheap, right? They could make some waves in free agency, and then you have the NFL draft coming up, and they pick number 4. And dude, if they draft Ted McMillan, oh my God, that's a match made in heaven. Now, I don't see them signing T. Higgins and drafting Ted McMillan. That would be too much of a. They would run they kind of run the same position. They both are great X wide receivers. Okay. But if you watch the Patriots late in the second half of the year, the last 5-6 games, you saw sort of a connection between him and Kayshon Boutte forming. Boutte didn't have great, amazing numbers, but he was in double digits almost every week. All right, so that was one sneaky under the radar wide receiver who was getting some looks, earning those targets. He earned those targets because, trust me, Javon Baker is very talented, and so is Jalen Polk, and neither of them were able to sniff the lineup. Like, I respect Pop Douglas and all he's done, but, you know, he's not that good to stay ahead of those two rookie wide receivers from last year are more talented than Pop Douglas. And so those two guys are in line for another year of opportunity here. You got a new coach, new head coach, new coaching system. They have a fresh new start. Either of them are candidates. They're basically dirt cheap. I mean, Polk probably cost you a little more just because he was a second round wide receiver, but I guarantee you the owner is super disappointed in Polk. I know I'm disappointed in Javon Baker. I let him go on a few of my best ball rosters that I had him on, but that was just because I didn't want the zeros anymore. He stashed on my taxi on a couple of teams, but because like he was my third round guy last year that I was picking way too many of and should have drafted more Bucky Irving. But anyway, the Patriots are an interesting situation. You're going to see another running back come into the mix. So you got Ramondre Stevenson, Antonio Gibson, and another body that will be there. And then we'll see what they do at the receiver position. The tight end position was solid with Hunter Henry and who's the other dude that they had? I can't think now. They've got their tight end situation set. So it's all looking great. Wheels up for Drake May. The 101 I would ship for Drake May if I needed the quarterback. In my most recent startup I did a couple weeks ago, I was at pick 303, and it was a toss-up to me between the 101 and Drake May. But being this early in the offseason and that early in the draft, I didn't want to pigeon myself in because I wasn't sure how the rest of the draft would go in picking quarterbacks. So I didn't want to lock into the quarterback. I felt I had more versatility draft-wise with picking the 101 there at pick 303. So keep that in mind when you're drafting in startups, and we'll have a whole series on startups coming up soon. But in startups, if you're able to pick the rookie picks, that keeps you more flexible throughout the draft, as long as you're not overdrafting them by a round or so. So keep that in mind in startups. But back to May, I love his prospects. Love their opportunity to increase from that 1.8 touchdown total to something at least somewhere around the 2.3, even to the 2.5 range this upcoming season. And that will boost Drake May up from QB 23. He could legitimately, depending on how much talent they give this kid, he could push for a top 10 quarterback season easily, because the kid, he's more talented than Bo Nix, and Bo Nix finished quarterback 7 or 8, at least in the top 10, just about every league I was in. So I think that Drake May has got an awesome opportunity. You should go out and try and kick the tires on the Drake May owner in your league. Maybe Maybe he's got 4 quarterbacks and doesn't necessarily need Drake May. Who knows? But take a look in your league who has Drake May and if they're willing to sell, because I'd be a buyer for sure right now. But that's all I've got for you tonight. Thanks for joining us, Chef. Loved your Bears input there. If you've got any other questions, you can go ahead and leave them in the comments below. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. We've got plenty of stuff going on here. Thanks, Chef. And just remember, you guys, never stop working.